All right, welcome to Little Jim Big Heart interview series. I'm here with a good friend of mine and professional colleague, TJ Lopez from AMP Athlete Movement Protocol. Is that what it stands for?
Athletic Movement Protocol. Yes.
Athletic Movement
AMP for
Protocol
short.
in Long Island, New York. So multi-location, but his main location is super legendary. Churns out, really stud athletes and he's done something really phenomenal, which is truly maximize the athlete and adult business model, where I think it's as close to 50-50 as it could possibly get, does well over $1 million a year, which is phenomenal. So, an athlete program that does $500,000, adult program that does $500,000. So TJ, why don't you give us, summary of who you are and, what qualifies you to be here today?
Thanks, Devin. Really appreciate it. I've been listening to all the podcasts, and great to hear you and our friends, John Doherty and Dad Goodman. I mean, just unbelievable information. I've been passing that on to my team, so anybody in the industry has got to listen to this. So thanks again, Devin, for having me. So a little bit about myself. I'm a former football player, washed up athlete, turned strength coach. Back in 2008 when I graduated school. I went to school for sports medicine and strength and conditioning. Always wanted to stick with the sports performance. Bounced around a lot early in my career. I was lucky enough to work with some professional athletes very early in my career, probably only about 2 or 3 years out of college. Started working with professional baseball players, including CC Sabathia. And he was, one of the athletes that I got to work with that really helped kind of like build my reputation in the industry, more specifically in baseball. And that led to many things, including I started my own business, started working with CC in probably 2010, started my own gym in 2013. So almost 12 years ago now. All throughout that time, the big thing that we were known for was training athletes. And over the last, I would say 3 to 5 years, I've really focused on building the adult program as well. As we all know, in this industry, the ebbs and flows of athletes going in and out of season becomes very difficult to keep up with. So being able to solidify the business on both ends has really just been a phenomenal thing for my business in the last, especially the last 2 to 3 years, especially since COVID. But one of those things that we got into the industry, we kind of like broke through within the athlete community and have had a stronghold on the Long Island area now for that, 10 plus years of just being consistent in the market, being known for no nonsense training where you come and you get results. And, we've been able to turn out some pretty high level athletes throughout the years, including some guys in the NBA, other athletes in the MLB. We've worked with UFC fighters. We've worked with NFL players, lacrosse and everything else in between. So it's been quite the ride. And now, as the owner, I have transitioned into more of that leadership role, watching my team grow and watching my team just absolutely dominate. We've seen tremendous growth in the last 2 years because of the team that I've been able to build, and and the guys and girls that are helping me build this thing that's just been so special for the last couple of years.
Awesome, man. Walk me through, so you went athlete route. So you made a comment, and I want to clarify. You said, as everybody knows, you can't build a business off just athletes. I don't think everybody knows that, because especially if you're getting into the industry, you might get a little, you might romanticize about the ultimate athlete performance facility, and you really have done both. So you've gone fully athlete, you've gone, a very heavy adult. So why don't you talk about, just really quickly, because I don't want to spend too much time talking about the downside, but talk about the realities, the brutal facts about running an athlete-only business, and use specifics if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, I'm not going to say that it cannot be done. I know people that are doing it phenomenally. Most of the people that are doing it for 10 plus years are very, very well known. And that is probably part of the downside. If you're not willing to go out there and really put yourself out there as the end all be all when it comes to athlete training, essentially the high level athletes, they want to work with the owner, the founder. And I felt that was something that I struggled with, like midpoint through this 10, 12-year journey. And being able to pass on the baton to my coaching staff was difficult, especially when we're working with Division I and professional athletes. They all kind of want your attention. I was able to commit fully early in my career to work with professional athletes, and I understand how much that takes out of you. It's something that, essentially it's a 7 day a week, 24/7 type of a gig where, you're kind of always on call with these higher level athletes because you want to be there for them. So I would say that's one downside. Another downside is, as you grow, your expenses are going to raise, right? Rents go up.
Yeah.
If you're building a team, you want to keep your staff, consistently paid and not just seasonal like your athletes. And that's probably year 2, 3, very early on. I realized when we were training mainly baseball players, they all go and play in March and April. So March, April, May, June were always really tough months, within this business model. And that was a big one when it came to, being able to back off the training floor a bit and hire a team. I didn't want to have to hire a team when we needed them and then essentially fire them when we didn't need them, or drop their hours down to 5 to 10 hours a week, which happens a lot. There are some facilities that actually close.
I mean, talk about the swings. Like it's probably a 30% swing seasonally, right?
The earlier, the bigger, I would say the swing was.
Right.
I would say, there were, months where, we would probably swing closer to 50 or 60%, which is scary, and there were many months early on that we went from, let's just say, on a cash flow basis, we were profiting 5 or 10 grand a month to losing 5 or 10 grand a month.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the year, it all kind of just evened itself out to be a break even. And early on in my career, I was kind of like chasing the dream of really just training athletes. I was working with CC and I was traveling around with him. I was working with him. My business is on Long Island, and I was training him in New Jersey where he lives.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, very close to where Dan Goodman, your previous guest, lives in New Jersey. So I was on the road a lot. I was, in sometimes, we'd get snowed in. I'd have to stay at his house. So there were days and days that I was away from my business. So it was very difficult to maintain throughout that time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the reason I called you up to come onto the show was, I think you're one of the only people that I know that has a truly split athlete and adult business, and it's doing phenomenally well. I mean, we're talking numbers in the $100,000+ months, and I want to talk about how you structurally set that up, how you divide your marketing efforts, and what you do differently on the adult and athlete side. So why don't we just start from the bird's eye view of like, how do you structure that from a business standpoint?
So this was also something that I struggled with, all the way up until probably year 6, 7 of the business. I was probably still about 80% athlete, even back in, right before COVID.
Yeah.
Excuse me, still, working on this cold I've got. So that was one thing that, getting mentors, getting, coaches, business coaches early on, or, probably later in the process really helped me establish what I needed. And some of it, I had to come up with on my own, and really understand how I wanted to build the business. So I've actually separated the business in some ways, and in other ways,
Perfect.
it's kind of like working together. But I created kind of like mini businesses within one, where I have really an adult focused coaching staff and process, and I have an athlete focused coaching staff and process. And over the years, they've kind of like melded together, and we've kind of been able to structure the business better. But essentially, we're messaging very differently for a 40 and over small group personal training crowd versus a youth, high school, and college athlete. So those were the things that that took a little while, especially wanting to not necessarily just give up on the athlete training. I had to find the right person. So we found a director that's just been phenomenal to really take on most of what's needed in the adult population to really focus their time and effort in the marketing efforts as well as the sales process.
So when you say you split it, what does that mean? I mean, is it different social media accounts, different website? Is it just internally like processes, mind body systems? Like how do you split it?
Yeah, I guess overarching, even the way that we track it separately. So we have two separate scorecards for the business. We have two separate, high level in our
CRM, yeah,
CRM. We have two separate lead and opportunity pipelines.
perfect.
We have two separate Instagrams. We have two separate Facebook accounts. We have the same website, so everything goes to the same website, but it does split, you know, depending on what you're looking for. So that was probably, setting all of that up was a little bit of a pain in the butt, and it was something that was a bit confusing early on. Even down to the point where just knowing when to post for one or the
Right.
other. But we've really built kind of like two different or two communities, but at the same time, where they kind of feed off of each other.
Well, and I want to emphasize that because, I always say in order to stand out, you've got to be hyper, you got to really speak to your target market, right? And somebody, long time ago mentor had this analogy called it the library test. And it's like if you wanted to learn how to hit a curveball, right? If you're a baseball player and you went to the library to take out a book, are you going to buy the everything you need to know about baseball book? Or are you going to buy the much smaller and much more concise book, How to Hit a Curveball, right? And it's like you want your website to attract the people that want to hit curveballs. So it's like if you have an adult fitness person stumbles upon your gym and they click into it and it's like adult fitness and then it's an athlete thing, it's like they're going to think that maybe this isn't the expert on adult fitness. But if you can segment and have every adult drive to like, oh, wow, these guys are experts in adult fitness because that's all I see, you're going to level yourself up so much faster than like the mixed messaging because athlete and adult marketing is very, very different. So,
Absolutely. I would say it is twice the work,
yeah.
setting the,
But I would
doubling
also
things
say
up.
like you're going to get double the results. Like I think the people that
Yes,
live in that gray area where they're like, we try to do it all. While it's simpler and like I want the listeners to it's the reason I'm emphasizing this, like, yes, it is simpler to have one single page and website and whatever. It will cause you to lose business.
and I think that one big thing that we made the adjustment on, probably in 2021 was bring on one of our former interns. Her name is Coach Hannah. She has really been the face of our program, of our adult program, for the last 3 or 4 years. And I think that kind of like separating where I'm more of the face of the athlete still, but most of the correspondence, the ads even
Yeah,
are Coach Hannah on the adult side of things. And I've still been kind of like the face of the athletes, but we're kind of passing that baton as well to Coach John and Coach Brandon. So having the messaging come from someone different sometimes is all you need. I could say the same exact thing in front of the camera, and Coach Hannah can say the same exact thing in
right,
front of the camera, but it resonates more with one or the other. And that really, once we separated the marketing, that's when things really started to take off. And once we
right,
really started investing in the marketing separately, again, it kind of it really does, create of some complexity, obviously, when you have two separate ad sets running at the same time,
right.
two separate messages going out at the same time, client of the week, client of the month, those types of things. But like we've been able to build these teams, and it's very clear as to who we help. We have two very specific customers that we help. We help athletes become better athletes, get faster, stronger, more durable, make their team, excel in their sport. And we help 40 and over adults get fitter, leaner, happier. But at the same time, we know how similar their approach may be. So the
Yeah,
systems of evaluation, we might focus on different things, but we're still evaluating when you come in the door. We use the InBody scale. I thought we were going to be using the InBody scale 100% for adults, but the athletes see so much
Yeah.
value out of it too, especially some of the older athletes looking to put on muscle mass and get leaner. So, really, being able to separate the systems, but also kind of like run them
Right.
at the same time and run them. We don't want 7 different processes. We don't want one business has a 6-step process. The other one has a 2-step process. We try to mirror as much as we can. The theme just might be
Yeah.
a bit different.
Well, and the client journey is going to be very similar. It's like you've got your trial booking process, which is going to be like we get on a call, we bring you in, we do an assessment, and then we prescribe a membership. You've got your onboarding process, which is hopefully probably just some sort of email series. And it's like the first email is welcome, and here's your helpful links. Number 2 is here's your nutrition manual or whatever. Number 3 is here's the whatever. You probably just change the copy and change the
Yes,
like exact messaging, but the skeleton is the same. So
absolutely.
yeah, that's great. And I think it's a perfect example of like again the value in speaking exactly to the target. So I do want to focus more on athletes. We've had enough people on here, and my
Mhm.
whole thing is mostly on adult fitness. What have you done to, aside from obviously the notoriety of your success with CC and the name reputation you've built, how are you building the athlete program? I mean, what's the marketing that you do? Are you running ads versus just, are you sending flyers out? What's the approach to build? And then I want to talk about retaining.
Absolutely. So, um, what's interesting is, as my career has progressed and as my personal goals, my family has grown, as I've kind of like shifted into more of that mentor role, I did actually start to kind of get away, I would say, from the athlete population a bit, where I wasn't putting as much focus on our athlete, or at least growing our athlete. We were really just focused on maintaining, retaining our athletes that we did have, which I think we did a great job. But we really weren't focused as much on growth for the adult program, I would say, all the way up until about 2022. And while I was really focused on getting the adult population from about 10% of my business to maybe 50% of my business, I would say, honestly, I probably lacked a bit of, energy and effort on growing the athlete population. So we really made that shift in probably late 2022, where in order to grow again, to really, jump back in and bring that athlete population back, we focus on Facebook ads. And it was something that not many, there weren't many people out there doing specifically, athlete training Facebook ads, especially in our area. And we saw such a tremendous response within the first like 3 to 6 months
Yeah.
of running, very simple, direct to the parent. So we were speaking to the parent, not necessarily speaking to the athlete. And I think we made that mistake in the past a bit, when we did kind of like dabble early on. So we spoke directly to the parent. If you're a parent of an athlete in the Syosset area, and I think that those words, especially when you're using things like captions where people either read it or listen to it, you're speaking to a very specific person. Hey, I live in the Syosset area. I'm a parent of a young athlete. I'm going to listen, right? I'm going to
Yeah.
lean in to that message. And that simple message, actually, that's the first video that I recorded, right, standing right here with my cell phone. And that's still our best performing ad set for about 18 to 24 months. It still mixes in with our new content, but we've hired Simmons Media has been coming down and doing some shooting some amazing content, which I think helps. It absolutely kind of amplifies our messaging by having really good content and having things that are obviously more visually appealing and all that. But sometimes the simplest messaging is what really goes a long way. And we went from kind of really relying mainly on referrals, joint ventures with local teams, obviously our social media presence and our Google listing and things like that. But once we added the Facebook ad, plan, we really, it was, absolutely increasing volume of leads and, adding fuel to the fire that we already had going. And we've really been able to almost double our athlete program from the
So
lows of 2022.
uh, let's get tactical. So Facebook ads is a great fuel source. I mean, we've seen the same success. For us, we've seen a big boost in like specialty programs. Like we do a summer speed camp. We'll do like seasonal kind of clinics and stuff, and we see a really good response to that versus just ongoing training. But we still get good results, but it's really good when we do the individual things. So what do you
Mhm.
spend? Like, what would cost? Let's just go cost per lead on athlete ads on Meta ads.
So on Facebook, so we've got two ad sets going, one for our main location in Syosset and one in Hauppauge, our second location. We started Hauppauge January of this year, so it's not a full year yet. But when we first started, it was about $12 to $18 per lead, which
That's
is
phenomenal.
phenomenal.
That's
Yeah,
phenomenal.
really, really good. And I think it just was a testament to the fact that not many people were had this similar message out there.
Let me go on a tangent really
It's
quick.
creeped up. Go
12 to
ahead.
18
Yep.
dollars is phenomenal. I've had conversations with people that ask and they're like, "Oh, I'm getting like 25, $30 leads. This is terrible." That's reality, especially you live in New
Hmm.
York, New Jersey, people that are in busier metro areas. Like there's so much fucking like saturation in this market.
Absolutely.
So my scorecard, we have the number is $40 is we aim for below $40
Hmm.
leads because that's just the reality of what we're doing. So if anybody, don't be misled by some of these agencies that are promising $5, $10, even $15 leads, uh, unless it's for short bursts or very limited, very very niche markets, it's not going to happen. So that's it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would say, obviously that was, early on. We do kind of average up to about 25 to 30.
Yeah,
We've been sticking in that range lately. If it does creep up, we do change things up, and it has helped over, just the testing of it. But yeah, it was that was one of the biggest, keeping simple messaging. So cost per lead is one thing, obviously, that we want to maintain. And then our conversion rates, we started to realize that our conversion rates on athletes were so much better than our
yeah,
conversion rates with adult training. And you mentioned before, for now, we are not marketing to a specific event or even really to a specific offer. We're just keeping it very general. It's essentially, we're naming the time of year. It's winter off-season training
yeah.
at AMP, and very, very kind of generalized, kind of evergreen type of an offer. That's been something that's been working for us. We've been getting anywhere between 40 and 60 leads per month, and we're actually converting somewhere in the range of 20 to 35% on those leads, on
Also
Facebook
phenomenal.
only leads,
Also
which
phenomenal.
is
Yeah.
across the board. If 5% is a good percentage when it comes to most Facebook. 10% is phenomenal, and I don't think we've ever been below 15%. I think might have been our lowest point, but we're averaging 25 to 30%
Yeah.
conversions to
Anybody,
sales.
so listen to that. So again, you hear a lot of podcasts, you hear a lot of, marketing gurus or people that are promoting their agencies or sales systems or whatever. Anybody that says they're converting or can guarantee a conversion of like above 30% of Facebook leads is full of shit.
Mhm.
I mean, you'll find like most Facebook leads, a vast 50% of them right off the bat are like, I didn't realize I opted in, or, you know, they just drop off immediately. So just take that with a grain of salt. 25. If you like kind of scoff it, that I'm like, well, it's phenomenal at 20 to 30%. It is very, very good.
Yeah, and if you think about it, cost wise, if we're signing up, if we're spending about $1,000 a month in ad cost, and we're signing up, quick math on 50, if we're converting even just 20% of them, that's 10, right? So that means 10 times our average sale of $400 per month.
Right.
So we've just 4x'd our
Yep.
ad spend on the first month. If you can do that, which I'm, speaking to myself, I should probably raise
Yeah.
my
Sometimes
my
you just got to
spend.
hear it out loud. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to hear it out loud. But at times, sometimes it does have to do with, you don't want to clog up
Right.
your system. You don't want to clog up, understanding what we can handle as a team right now. I wouldn't want to go from 50 leads to 500 leads. I don't think that would be a good thing for us. I think we would probably, it just wouldn't be the same percentage. We wouldn't be able
Right.
to handle that.
And there's a reason. What was that coupon site Groupon like put people out of business in the past because
Right.
when it was popping off, like you'd get 100 leads and then you got to service all of them and
Hmm.
you drop the ball, you get bad reviews and it really screws you over. So, but that number, like I talk a lot about driving all your decisions based on data. That's a 4x, like a 4 times ROAS, return on ad spend. That's like perfect. That's like ideal world, perfect scenario stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, don't get greedy and
And
try to maximize it too much because you might drop the
right.
ball.
So we just actually flipped we were spending more on adults and less on athletes. Our split was about $1,000 a month on athletes and 1,500 on adults. We just flipped that. So we switched to 1,500 a month on athletes and 1,000 on adults. And the reason why we did that was because we started obviously seeing the conversion rates were so much better on athletes, but also the referral rates
Yeah.
were better when we essentially would offer the adult of an athlete a free month of training or entrance into one of our challenges. That really started to show in the last 6 to 12 months that we were, converting 10 or 15 adult clients who were parents of our athletes into memberships, and they were staying longer. So we realized, okay, the budget is the budget, and I always like to keep things separate. But I started realizing, we're running 2 scoreboards, but these people, these parents, were originally Facebook ads. They just came in from our athlete side, and we're not counting them as Facebook conversions. So once we made that kind of like mindset shift, it's once again, we've seen another kind of uptick in the effectiveness of what we're doing. And I think that, one thing that I'm always doing, and I know that you are, and I look up to you, Dan and everyone else that we've come to have in our network lately. But we're constantly trying to improve. We're constantly trying to create systems around what we're already doing and dial it down to the necessities and the things that are going to be most effective. And if you're not tracking these things, you're not going to get better. And if you're not running scoreboards, if you're not running Monday meetings where you're reviewing your scoreboards, you're reviewing your results, there's no measurement on, okay, what is the main cog in the wheel that if we fix is going to affect all of these other things that are going to have that cascading effect of success. And I think just constantly, being in it, being in the numbers and knowing and having
Yeah.
faith in the process. And I think that was, for me, there were many times when I would come to the business with new ideas and I didn't necessarily have the right people in the room. And it was like, oh, here comes another one of these ideas that, we're going to focus on it for a month and then it's going to kind of fall off. Because I didn't have the buy-in. Maybe I wasn't fully bought in myself, but I just didn't necessarily have the buy-in for the people in the room. They just want to show up, coach the athletes, and be
Yeah.
on their way. But I've got such an amazing team today that has the same mindset of growth and improvement and, not getting annoyed when we have to make a change. It's like, hey, change is good. Change means
Yeah.
we figured something out, and therefore we're going to be more effective when we address and we put that same amount of effort in, but we're going to have an exponentially better result on the back end. And I think that myself, as a leader, has gotten a lot better as a communicator, and having these set in stone meetings where we're constantly kind of dissecting, okay, what can we do better here? What's the real number? What's the real effect? Look at it monthly, quarterly, weekly. Those are the things that have really, once again, really, I think COVID had probably a huge effect on anybody that survived 2020 as a small business. You had to do one of two things. You had to get, or probably a little bit of both. You had to get really lean throughout that time, and you had to get better at the same time. And, instituting a lot of these systems and processes like
Yeah.
EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, Traction, Gino Wickman. If you're a small business and not utilizing those systems, you're running with blinders on. Flying by the seat of your pants, however you want to explain it. It just there's no checks and balances on what you're doing. And really, that was another thing that was just so transformative to turning from this strength coach that had a following, that had notoriety as training athletes and whatnot, to being a business owner that is building a legitimate team and a legitimate business. So those are, I would say it's the numbers and everything are great, but you have to be in there tracking them. You have to keep
Right.
your eyes on the ball at all times.
Yeah, I use the analogy a lot, and I think it relates incredibly closely. Is like I grew up playing baseball. I wanted to play in college. So like if you stop me any day of the week when I was in high school, I could tell you my batting average because I was like, I
Mhm.
need a 300 plus batting average if I want to play in college. That is my gold standard number. So that meant every game I needed 2 hits. So every single day, if I didn't get 2 hits that game, I'm like, shit, I'm below the bar. Now I need to like make sure I get 2 hits. So having that number, that one number. So my sales team, it's like you need one sale every day at Gage. If you go to bed at night and you didn't hit your one sale, you are now officially in that batting average. Like your average is slipping. So have that one number that you track, just you keep in front of you. You look at it every single day and you are just relentlessly checking off. And what you find is some days are easy because you hit it really early, or some weeks you hit it by Wednesday for the week and now you can coast. But just be very intentional and meticulous about like never miss that one number. Tangent. But now going on to you've got your numbers for lead gen, you've got your numbers for sales, you're tracking it. What are you doing in the athlete like client journey? Is there any kind of like testing? Is there, how do you stay competitive and innovative in your performance training? Like what's the structure of the athlete training? How do you retain them? What's the pulse there?
That another kind of fear of mine, and sometimes I do certain things based on fear. I do other things based on goals and kind of being driven by the outcome. So my biggest fear as a young strength coach was, once I stopped coaching on the floor and doing every evaluation and writing every single program, would my quality of training and quality of product go down? Because I knew in my heart I could never sell or grow something that I didn't truly believe in myself.
Right.
And early on in my career, I was 100% focused on getting my athletes the best results possible, being the best strength coach I could be. And everything that I focus on business wise now, I was focusing on training wise when I was in my, earlier in my career, in my 20s and early 30s. So the guardrails that I created and that I set up to make sure that I was confident enough to know that the business and the quality of what I'm putting out there is still to the standard that I hold, was our partly, I would say number one was our evaluation process. So I didn't want to eliminate the evaluation
Right.
and the assessment on day one. So whenever a client comes through, through our CRM, we have some automation set up. An immediate message goes out, letting them know that we got their information. We send them an email. We do our best to get them on the phone within the first minute or two, if we can, obviously, depending on when the lead comes in, or any time within the first 12, 24 hours. We're trying to get them on the phone and have that discovery call. Again, very similar to what you would do with an adult population, but most of the time you're talking to the parent and you're trying to understand why the parent is calling. What sport does their son or daughter play? How old are they? What are their specific goals? What are they looking for out of a gym? What are they looking for? How serious is their athlete? What teams are they playing for? All those types of things. Then the next step is to get them in for that evaluation. We do it here in this room. We actually have a presentation to the TV from a computer. And we go through a very, similar process we would with our adults, is really understanding who they are. We have them fill out some pre-participation forms. We have them, fill out a kind of an injury report. We ask them questions about that, so we have something to kind of talk about. We ask them about their goals. We ask them about, the teams that they play for. What positions do they play? What's their practice schedule like? All of those things that we can then, create a better plan, afterward. Then, so we usually meet them in the office first, and then we take them out onto the floor. We give them a little mini gym tour. We kind of show them everyone. We high five the coaches, introduce, some of the coaching staff, and, maybe some of the athletes in the gym that they may know. And then we take them through an assessment. So
Yeah.
we started off in-body scan first. Then we go through an FMS screen. We take them onto the table. We do a table assessment, flexibility, range of motion. Maybe if there was specifically something we saw in that FMS that we want to ask questions about, whether it's injuries or tightness or whatever it may be. Then we bring them back into the office, and now we have some more context to, basically to provide a solution, right? Many times these parents come in the door and they're kind of blown away by the process because they've never been through anything like that.
It's a professional
Most gyms.
prescription. It's a prescriptive sale.
Absolutely.
It's like if you go to a doctor and you sit down and you're like, my head hurts, and he's just like, all right, here's some Tylenol. He doesn't know you're allergic
Right.
to it, or doesn't know this is a chronic issue, doesn't know that, you've got a history of brain tumors in your family. Like
Absolutely.
that. So it's funny because you say this, and I want to emphasize you're building value throughout every step. So I talk about friction a lot in business. Friction is horrible in business, except in the sales process. Like if it's too easy to sign up for your gym, or it is just too simple and you're like, oh yeah, we can get you faster, that's super easy. People associate in that context ease with low value. So
Yes.
you want them to be like, oh wow, like you can't just walk in here off the streets. Like that would be, obviously we couldn't train you. And that's you're making your just call it NLP term. You're presupposing that the parent should know that anybody that takes a kid off the street and puts them into a session is putting them at risk. So
Yes.
everything you're doing is like creating the enemy of the McDonald's gym down the street. You're adding value, you're creating friction. Like it's fucking phenomenal. I love it.
Absolutely. I would say, when we look at what our competition is doing, which you should know what's out there. I don't think you should obsess over it. I don't think you should, necessarily fear the competition, but you should know what's going on. You should understand the market. And I know the market, and they're not doing what we do. They're not taking them through this 100 point. I actually have is this going to be on YouTube?
Yeah.
This is our evaluation form. So
it's phenomenal.
there's a lot on this form. There's a lot on this sheet. And there are many things that we assess that then we have, once we speak to the athlete, we have a lot more context. Just like your business, if you're only measuring one thing, if that one thing's off, you feel like you're a failure. But if we're able to measure 100 things and 30 or 40 of them get better, now we have a lot to speak about. And maybe 10 of them don't get better. Now we can actually, once again, the science of it is about improving. And it's about, measuring and reassessing. And then, essentially creating a system that you can bring an athlete into, that the system's already running.
Right.
But the way that we've built it is that it is individualized based on their specific need. Now, just like in a business, if you want to meet on a quarterly basis, a yearly basis, a monthly basis, a weekly basis, those meetings will happen on the same time, the same day.
Right.
And you maybe have the same agenda. But every week, you're talking about different things.
Right.
Every quarter, you're talking about different things. Okay, we fixed this issue. Now we're going to focus on that. And it's very similar to the athlete process. And that's why I love the concept of the 90-day world. And we bring our clients into that 90-day world when we speak to them through this evaluation process. So we want to set a 90-day goal. We want to set, okay, in 90 days, we're going to reassess you now, right? Great. We got your information. It's on paper. What does that mean? It means that we have some things to work on, but it doesn't mean that this is you forever.
Right.
It means that this is where you are today. And our goal is to take you along the path to becoming a better version of yourself as a better athlete, as a better person, more durable, less pain, more muscle mass, higher vertical jump, faster, stronger, all of those things. And now I can show you the specific things we're going to work on. And then we're going to reassess them and show you that actually we got you better.
Yeah.
And we're proving to you and to yourself that you put in the work, you get the result, right? And also being very honest in this process is really, really important. If you tell an athlete,
Easy.
great, all you need is one time a week. It's really
Yeah.
easy. You get in and you guaranteed results. If you start saying that to your clients, they might believe you on day one, but they know you're a liar on day 90 if you didn't
Yeah.
get the result, right?
Well,
So
and that's
you
a
really have
important
to
that's an
have
important
that.
point because I have to talk people out of like the natural inclination if you're in sales is to be like, oh yeah, that's it. Like we got you. We're experts in that. And again, it goes like the harder you make it seem, the more value it is because it's more trustworthy if you're like, listen, I'm gonna be honest, it is not gonna be easy. It's gonna take,
Right.
this much effort. That's gonna be comforting for people because they're gonna be like, oh wow, like he's not afraid to tell me that it's gonna be hard to because that could lose the sale. So it's gonna be build trust and it's gonna put more of the onus and get more buy-in from them. Like if they come in and they're like, "Oh, they said they can do this easy." One, it's gonna be deemed as low value because they're like, "Oh, it's that easy for them to do. Why am I paying $500 for it?" Versus you're like, "Listen, we're gonna pour every single resource into your athlete. We're gonna design custom programs, but you guys got to show up and do the work because we're pouring work into you. I need to know that you're gonna do this." And yeah, it's just on all angles, it is great.
Absolutely. And, I think that throughout this conversation and throughout this process, we're not just selling our program. We're educating. We're
Yeah.
educating the client. We're educating the parent. We're letting them know about the process that is needed to get better. And I've always said this in the sales process. You don't need to do it here, but you need to do it if you want to become the best version of yourself. And what that means is if you're 5'3" and you want to play in the NBA, you may not play in the NBA, but you might be the best point guard on Long Island if you
Yeah.
put the effort in. And understanding that there are many athletes that we sit in front of that have very big goals, but they don't necessarily put in the work or the effort. And again, you have to kind of like put that little bit of fear in them as well. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
listen, we're going to talk about this today. My fear is that you're not going to show up, that you're not going to put in the effort. You're going to get distracted, or you're going to say, you know what? I couldn't make it because of X or Y or Z. And I get it. I completely get it. It's not easy, being a student athlete, being a parent that's driving the kids all around. I
Yeah.
haven't gotten to that phase of parenthood yet, but not looking forward to it. Just, fighting the traffic and all that stuff.
Mhm.
But we do our best to create access, availability as best as we can. And that reflects in the price point as well. And like you said before, there are many places out there that'll just take your money and throw you in a class and then never see another assessment again. Maybe they do a little something throughout the class, but it's not individualized.
Right.
They might have asked you about injuries, but you and I know when you ask somebody about their injuries, they say no. And then you start asking questions. You're like, oh yeah, actually I broke my arm in third grade and I did this and, ninth grade and my back hurts when I do that and my shoulder hurts when I do that. It's like, you need time for that. You need to sit
Right.
with someone shoulder to shoulder and really actually get that information out of them if you truly care about them and you truly want to get them better. And again, it makes it's way more complex as a business to run. It's way more complex of a process to uphold and the standard to uphold. But I wouldn't allow the business to grow in any other way if I wasn't confident that what we're doing is putting out a great product and helping athletes, because I see so many times, athletes in the gym working out with terrible form, way too much weight on the bar, focusing on lifts they probably shouldn't be doing at their specific age, no proper warm-ups, all that kind of stuff. And obviously as coaches ourselves, we really care about that. and that standard and that quality. So yeah, essentially the next step in that process that we go through. Obviously, we have their information in front of us. We're kind of explaining to them the life cycle of a client, and we actually have a presentation that kind of goes through what we have as our 7-step process, and I explain it and I show it visually in this kind of like circular, cycle of time where, essentially it's day one, it's
Right.
discovery, understanding, their goals and what they want, what their ideal, year, 2 years, 5 years may be, where they want to go in college, where, what level they want to play at, all those types of things. Then we move along the line to, okay, we're here today, we're assessing you today. And now we're kind of like looking at the information in front of us, and we're trying to put together a plan for us to go on, a process to commit to. We have expert coaches on the training floor, and that's always been a standard thing for me. Most of our coaches are certified and degreed. It's not necessarily, you don't have to have a degree in strength and conditioning to be a coach here, but we put you through a full year of education before you're going to be out there on your own.
Wow.
So we've got, things like Boyle certification. We've got the NSCA, the NASM. All of our coaches are going through at least one, if not multiple of those certifications to be a coach on the floor, to coach with athletes, especially. And then the biggest part of that is that reevaluation process and understanding that we want you to commit, right? So on our first day of actual training, so once the athlete commits to the training, we do a performance evaluation where we'll test their vertical jump, their broad jump, their speed,
right,
their strength, things like that. Those get reevaluated every 90 days. We try our best at least every 90 days. Sometimes, depending on the scheduling, it doesn't necessarily work out, but we're trying to get 3 to 4 assessments of our athletes that stick with us per year.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of data. It should be a lot of improvement. You should see that line going up and to the right.
Right.
And again, those are things that we've kind of evolved over time. That's turned into somewhat of an event for us now. We started running combines, in-house combines where they can bring a friend. So it became kind of a referral opportunity for us as well. But it fit right within our system of assessment. And now that gives the athletes more of an opportunity to get reassessed. And we don't mind. Like, okay, you want to jump in one every month? Go ahead. It doesn't necessarily get restricted to that once every 90 days, but we want at least every 90 days of progress and of part of our process. And now we have data to show them, because I think you did a great job talking about how, sometimes our clients get results, but they don't know about it, right?
Right.
Day one, maybe they could bench press 20-pound dumbbells. It's day 90, they're bench pressing, 55 pounds and having no problem, but they don't equate that to getting stronger.
Yeah, they don't
putting
even
on
realize
lean
what's
mass.
happening.
And so sometimes you have to show them, right? And as we grow and as we build our team, we're looking to kind of, do a better job, again, kind of graphically displaying their improvements.
Yeah, that's great.
We haven't necessarily found the app that's best just yet. We have a few that we're working with. But to bring the parent back in to the process and show them, hey, Johnny's been consistent. He's training, visits is a really important part of it, right? How many times did he train? 15, 20 times a month. Okay. These are his lifts. These are the exercises that he improved in. This is his vertical jump. This is his speed. All of those things, that's what they came here for.
Right.
Right. But we also know, or, not necessarily know for sure, they came for the results, but they stay for the community.
Yeah.
And we've really started to focus on building that community with athletes as well. And community has to do with a bit of mentorship from the coaching staff, but also the people in the gym that they're meeting and that now they're becoming friends. Very similar to how we build the community of the adults. These combine events and, these kind of like themed workouts we've started to do with the athletes have really started to help, build that community on the athlete side of things too.
Nice. So, I mean, that's kind of your retention summed up is like you're testing, you're retesting. The assumption is that the kids are improving, which I think you guys probably have a system
Mhm.
for making sure. And I would assume that when they want to leave, it's like, hey, the truth is, I used to use this analogy where I'm like, listen, training is like putting money into the bank. The second you walk out of here and stop training, you start taking withdrawals from the bank.
Yep.
Like the practice comes on, like you're getting beat up in the season, like your speed, your power, your agility, your strength, it's all getting withdrawn. You want to load up your bank account, but when you go in season, we want to make sure you're at least maintaining. So if you're training and practicing and having games, you're keeping at least 1 day a week so that you're maintaining the balance in the account. So you're not starting from scratch every off season. So I think that's a phenomenal. So you said, how often are you retesting, and is that a standard like assessment that you do every month or every quarter that you do with the athletes?
Yes. So right now we've just started doing I believe it's the first or second Friday of every month. We're doing a combine assessment where we're testing. We have enough room to do a fly-in 10-yard sprint, vertical jump, broad jump, lateral bound, med ball throw, and it's based on percentage of body weight a farmer carry.
Nice.
So we do all of those. There's a few other assessments I'm probably forgetting, different variations of the assessments, and we keep those standardized for them to get reevaluated. And it's in their program. It reminds them. They have every 90 days they get a reminder. Hey, it's time to schedule your assessment. And then obviously having posters in the gym and letting people know like when our next assessment is through social media, through texting and emailing. Those are all things that keep the continuity.
Yeah.
Once again, if you have the system, great. But if the culture is not to follow the system, just like in business, it's not going to get done. And there were
Right.
times, throughout the years where we wanted to get these assessments done, but it just wasn't happening. So because we've grown, we've turned it into more of a group assessment versus a one-to-one every time we do it, because we were trying to do these as one-offs. And I would say if you have like 50 to 100 clients, you could probably do that and stay on top of it. But as we've started to grow, we wanted to make sure that we were giving them the opportunity to get this assessment done at least once a month. The opportunity is there, but really, make sure like if they miss one, they get on the next one so that they're constantly getting reevaluated. And that's that conversation should be a good one.
So I
And
just
even
had an
if it's a
idea.
negative conversation, you can even have that negative conversation. Say, hey, listen, maybe part of the reason why you didn't get the result is because we weren't able to train as often as we wanted to. Let's double down and really, instead of just trying, to get here once or twice a week, let's get 2 or 3 times a week. And that's
Yeah.
another way to kind of have that conversation.
I don't know if you do this. I just because we're we have an athlete program in my gym. It's not as dialed in as you guys, but there's room for it to grow. And I've been thinking, I'm like, how the hell can we do these assessments and track everything? So I'm thinking right now, just my brain is working with some ideas. If you had a pipeline, like just like a leads tracking pipeline, where you're like every athlete goes in with one stage, and then every 90 days they get you get prompted to do an assessment, and they sit in that assessment phase until they go through it, and then it just moves them back. And every 90 days you get prompted like, hey, it's little TJ's time for an assessment. The next time they're in, they do it, or you call them up and you're like, hey, this Saturday we're running assessment day, like make sure you get in. So I think CRMs, a lot of people talk about it as like the lead nurturing and sales thing, but we use it operationally a lot. So we have like client management systems in there, like we're tracking who needs touch points for their client journey. And I think the athlete thing could be a really good way to use that pipeline tool.
We have, and that's
That's great.
something that the internal notifications and internal reminders have been huge. We have our director of sports performance, who's really on the sales end of things, the assessment side of things. And then we have our success coordinator that's more involved with retention and programming.
Yeah.
So our, Coach John will be on the front end. Coach Brandon is on the back end. Coach Brandon is the one that's making sure the kids are coming in for those assessments. That they're getting into the gym, right? But they do have those notifications that are going to the athlete and also to the coach to let us know, okay, hey, it's time for
Yep.
their reevaluation. We're either inviting them down to an assessment, one of our combines, And sometimes we will just do it separately, and we'll just make sure, hey, next time you're in, meet with the coach. It's going to be about 15 minutes. We're going to warm you up, and then we're going to go through our combine assessment. And as long as, we're able and we have the space to do it, we can fit them in that way too. So it's just, again, it's how important is it? If it's important, it must be done.
Yeah.
And
And it's, I
if
will
you're
say,
having a
I can
hard
speak
time,
with the
yeah,
utmost confidence. It is incredibly important because, especially like we talked about, adults oftentimes don't see what's happening in their body and what changes. Parents have no clue what's happening to their kids in sessions. Yes, they're going to see like more confidence, and they're going to see their kids, maybe performing better. But like, especially if they're in the off season, kids are going to get in the car and guess what they're going to say? Like, it was good. What did you do
right,
today? Nothing. I don't know. I don't know. That's what my daughter does.
right,
So if you can have something where you're testing and sending to the parents, like, hey, little Johnny started, he was, his knees were caving in on bodyweight squats. Today we had him, goblet squatting with a 50-pound kettlebell. Like that's a 5,000% increase in whatever. Like if you can just have that one little thing to remind them of the value, because when their credit card gets hit, they're going to need something to cross-reference with, like, why am I paying this again?
absolutely, absolutely. And we understand that those conversations, how crucial those are.
Yep.
And sometimes we just have to insert ourselves into those conversations to make sure that it's getting to the right person, because they're not necessarily making the buying decision, the athlete
Yeah.
themselves. And they maybe don't understand how important it is to maintain training throughout the year.
Not
Obviously,
at
if we're
all.
explaining this to the athlete, there are many athletes that are advocates for themselves. They'll go to their parents and say, no, listen,
Right.
I'm going to figure it out. I know I have practice. I know I have games, but I need to train at least once a week.
Yeah.
Well, how can we make that happen? And we've got, it's funny, not to kind of separate,
Teach
but we
teach the
find
kids
that
how to to pitch their parents. They go home with a
yeah,
PowerPoint.
what's interesting is, I don't like to separate, based on, boys and girls, but the girls that are serious,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
they know how to get their parents to commit to something. And the boys are just like, they go, yeah, it was a good
You
workout.
should give
Whatever.
your
I feel
kids. We
good.
should give your kids a little a mini slide deck that they could take home and be like, "All right,
Yeah.
mom, dad, this is
I have this
my
PowerPoint presentation
yeah.
for you.
Like what I want for Christmas this year is to stay at AMP athlete training, and this is how we can make it work. As you'll see in
Absolutely.
diagram number one is the athlete schedule in conjunction. Anyway,
Yeah.
well,
And
listen,
that's
man.
one thing. Yeah.
Well, no, finish what you
I
were
have
going to
one.
say.
Yeah. I've got one more thing, and I'll kind of wrap up the whole sales process for you. So last thing we just started to implement, and I know we've kind of gone back and forth on this, and we've spoke about it a few times. Giving them the opportunity to commit for long term, and I think that's something that we've always struggled with athletes. We have a minimum commitment of 3 months because we understand that 3 months is really what it takes to see any true result and to
Right.
really get into a specific habit. Even though some athletes will leave after those 3 months, we're able to, have that conversation and do a better job to maintain longer than that. We have just started instituting a prepay or a paid in full option to commit for longer term. Now, this doesn't necessarily happen on the front end many times. I would say maybe 1 in 10 of them happen on the actual sale, because they're usually a referral that's fully bought in. And they're like, yeah, we're committing to the year. That's what we're going to do.
Right.
But we do give them the opportunity now to prepay for the year or for 6 months, and we give them a discount. If they pay in full, they lock in their rate, and now that conversation is a lot easier because they're already paid for, committed to 6 months or 12 months.
Right.
And we're trying our best. Obviously, not many people. It's not a huge percentage of our clientele, but what it does is it allows us to then program a little bit differently and understand,
Yeah.
they are committed for at least 12 months or 6 months. And those are always the clients that we're looking for. So giving them that opportunity to make that buying decision once instead of having to make it every 2 weeks, like we build them every 2 weeks, just like you said. But we've noticed that those parents are actually much more bought into the process. And then they want a little bit of information too. They want to
Right.
know, like, hey, how's Johnny doing after 90 days? Well, I'll be there for the evaluation. I'll be there for the assessment. So it doesn't happen every single time. But giving them that opportunity to fully commit so that we have them, we have, it's more of like a college or professional environment where, they're not going anywhere for a little while.
Right.
right? That's the challenge for most of our athlete training is they're in and out, they're in and out. But that's one thing I will say that has worked tremendously for us
I love
to
that.
commit.
Yeah, because it hits on a lot of like one, you're presupposing with the parent and NLP term again that you need to do this year round. It also gives you way more direction on programming. If you actually want to produce good results, now you
Yep.
know you can periodize for the whole year versus like shit, we got to jam a lot of shit into this 3 month period because that we know they're leaving. So listen, man, I want to wrap this up. So we talked about the way you've been able to structure the business, completely separating. I think if you're going to go in on an athlete and adult, you absolutely must. It's something that we kind of kicked the can on for a long time. We just started doing, and it's been way better. So splitting the business structurally, having people dedicated, having different client journeys. We talked about your phenomenal sales process. That I think if you want to again get the most out of your athlete program, like in-person consults. Like we actually moved away from them, and we've got one salesperson, but when we do bring on a new salesperson, like we're gonna make re-mandate in-person consults for athletes because parents want to know and build trust with the person that's going to be their parents' mentor for a period of time. So in-person consults add more value. You can get more trying to do annual or paid in full sales. And then I love that assessment process. So great stuff, man. How can people find more about you or, if they want to have questions, want to reach out and, you know, do you want people to reach out to you?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm always down for, helping out, people in the industry. You can find me at Coach TJ Lopez on Instagram. You can find us at amp_athlete on Instagram as well. That's my business, and amp_personal training. And if you want to email me, TJ Lopez at ampathletes, plural.com. And
Just for a reference, how do
I'm
you spell
always,
TJ?
yeah, right. No periods in
Yeah,
between. But it's being a part of this industry has been something that has just been a gift. And being able to kind of grow and learn from guys like you, Devin, and all our friends in the industry now that we've really kind of created this amazing network that I've been able to grow my business, and it's helped me, tremendously. And if you guys are in there, in the trenches, listening to this content, the biggest thing I would say is to start putting some things in action, but also understanding when and where. And I've been in
right.
business for 12 years. There are many things that if I tried 12 years ago, I wasn't ready for them. But getting your ducks in a row, getting your priorities straight, but following people like Devin and the people that he'll have on this podcast and the lessons that he's giving is just it's second to none. So I do truly appreciate you bringing me on and having me share my story.
Cool. Oh, I appreciate you, man. Thanks for all that you do for the industry. You share a lot of wisdom as well with the groups that you're a part of, and check them out. Thank you, guys.